M. The Media Project. SM Graves Associates is partnered with Rove Creations to offer design-build services in residential and mixed-use development. We believe in building neighborhoods from the bottom up. We're dedicated to solving the middle-market housing challenge in both rural and urban environments. If you'd like to engage an innovative and detail-oriented design-build firm, we'd like to hear from you. Find out more at smgravesassociates.com/community development.
And it kind of gets back to like, what do we value? What do we not value, right? What we're not valuing is peace. I think truly,
I want you to do something though. Define for me what you mean by peace. I think peace, we use that word like we use the word freedom. And I think the word itself has lost most of its meaning for most people.
Yeah.
Is peace simply the absence of violence, or is it, to me, it seems like it's something much more than that.
Yeah.
It only starts with a lack of violence. Peace, I would even say you can have inner peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the world could be melting around you.
Yeah. Well, so like it's a great question and a great thing to prioritize, because peace is actually a very complicated word, and it holds a lot more depth than I think most people give credit for. In fact, Johann Galtung defines it in two camps, actually. So there is negative peace, and then there is positive peace. So negative peace, you have an absence of violence by holding a monopoly on violence. Okay. So you make sure nobody else is doing the shooting.
The Pax Romana.
But the state. Yeah. So like so that is a negative piece, because you're actually generating structural and cultural violence in order to maintain the status quo, which ultimately in every single instance will erupt into a mass amount of direct violence. Direct violence is where you see the physical violence, the kinetic side of things, right? Then you have your positive piece, and positive piece is the goal. That's like the end state for Galtung, at least, as he talks about it. And so you look at what positive peace is trying to achieve, and it's peace, meaning harm is not being caused structurally, culturally, or directly. And it's achieved through consensus. It's achieved through a collective decision to be peaceful, right? Which, if we look at that kind of idea of positive peace, this is much more complicated and difficult than most people would give it credit for. We talk about long-term games with like culture and stuff. If you want to create a cultural transformation within a violent community and move them towards a non-violent solution, that kind of process, I think we see played out in history over and over and over again. A democracy is a radical new idea. It's only been around for, a couple hundred years, a radical new idea about how to manage conflict peacefully, right? And in large part, democracy, when done well, drives towards a positive peace, right? But you still have to deal with the structural and the cultural violence. This is where identity politics comes in.
This seems where we're stuck, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because the status quo is working for some, and there's just a belief that I really don't know where it comes from, because I don't sit in those shoes. By the way, you you just redefined both peace and freedom for us.
Really?
Well, that idea of a positive peace.
It requires
that's true freedom. Think about, right? That one is one's load is lightened because there's a process now. There's a well to continue to go back to.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the power of a positive peace, and I think that this scales like infinities, it's like you can hold a positive peace within yourself, within your household, your family, right? Within your local community, a state, a country, but at scales, it becomes significantly more complex on how to achieve that. I do think that there are some fundamental principles, though, that help facilitate that kind of transformation, that kind of process. One is, as I've already mentioned, diversity. Like you have to have an abundance of diversity. But two, you have to have a process in which you can understand each other and accept difference. There's a framework, for example, that I find particularly useful, and I forget where I found it and have struggled to find it since, but it's called the ladder of violence. Some may even call it the ladder of tolerance, and I know that tolerance is a very loaded term, but the way this actually works is at the center of the ladder, at the midpoint, is tolerance. People are willing to tolerate each other, and as you go up the ladder, you actually see, people seek to understand each other. People learn to interact with each other. People celebrate each other's differences. People are celebrating the diversity within their community. And as you go up and up and up, you are going closer to that positive peace. You're creating that cultural system, that practice of behavior that generates positive peace, right? As you go down the other side, this is where you see the dehumanizing process that leads ultimately at the bottom rung there to genocide, right? How do you impose or make a group of people less than another group of people? How do you, disrupt or dehumanize them in some way?
Yeah, you're actually going beyond placing them at a disadvantaged position over your group, but then just out and out dehumanizing them, which makes them disposable.
It does. And we, so I love this framework of the ladder of tolerance, loaded terms aside, but I think this is why the term tolerance is so loaded. It's because, people, no one wants to feel tolerated. But, if we look at politics here in the US and, by valuing money as the penultimate resource, as the thing that drives all other decisions, we have limited ourselves to such scarce resources in terms of ideologies, right? We're now almost sucked entirely into that monoculture, and I think there are lots of conservatives and liberals who cannot tolerate each other.
Yeah. I would agree. As a person who's run for office several times in this epic that we're talking, our conversations within, and helped twice a friend, interestingly enough, whose political views are often at odds with my own. He has helped me and I have helped him.
Yeah.
Much to that's created some additional interesting stories.
Controversy, I'm sure.
I'm very much a liberal and he's very much a conservative. And the people around us, right? They're like, how can you guys help each other? It's like, well, we have a lot more in common than we don't, because we still recognize our humanity. But you start to realize, like, wow, like things have changed, man. There's a lot of people here that really resent both of us for the relationship that we have.
Just having a
relationship. That's scary. That's really scary. I'm laughing about it right now with you because we're in conversation, but that keeps me up at night.
Well, and that's the cycle of violence, right? That's an escalation that is escalating towards more violence. We're headed down the ladder, right? As we dehumanize each other more and more, and we become more polarized. The entire system of democracy is supposed to be a process for folks who disagree to still work together.
That's right. That's what perhaps the strength of that system, right?
That system is to help. Like we actually to go back to the 1950s, and I don't want to say the 1950s was a golden era. No, lots of problems in the 1950s, but they did have some things that they were.
But they did have Louis Prima.
They did have Louis Prima, of course.
I mean, come on.
And they also had huge collaboration across the aisle.
Yeah,
massive collaboration across the aisle. It's an interweb of relationships if you put it on a chart, right?
Well, listen, we had a Congress that survived McCarthyism. Not only did it survive, it didn't really survive it. It got to a point. It was still heated times, and it still damaged a lot of people, sadly.
Yeah.
But it did not break the country. It got to a point where people realized enough was enough.
Yeah.
And that arguably that shows a resilient system.
Indeed.
Don't you think we through conversations like this wrought a million times over? I mean, aren't there still enough of us that desire this idea of true peace and a system that works for a maximum number of our neighbors, whether those neighbors are in this country or in other countries? I mean, surely, where do you stand as far as like you haven't given up hope, right? I mean, we could turn this around.
No, gosh, I could spend an hour on that alone or more, but no, I have not given up hope. I don't think I will ever give up hope. I think I think the largest realists are often very hopeful people. In some ways, to give up hope is to lean into the most damaging things that you hate, right?
Certainly, yeah.
So there's that. But I also think that our planet Earth is incredibly resilient, and will find ways to move on, whether humans are a part of that or not, right? And so there's that, like, okay, yes, we like whether or not we are able to like deal with the climate changes and things that we're facing in a way where humans can still be a part of the picture, that's complicated. But where it really falls is that kind of pendulum thing that we're talking about. Right now everything's escalating towards more violence, and that's scary. It's terrifying, right? But I also see more and more people reaching to want to connect. I think people feel an absence of these other cultural values. They feel an absence of human connection. This is why I do poetry open mics, is because people just, they need it. They don't understand it. No one's ever taught, people like this, at least not in the way that it used to be taught,
Yeah. But it's a fundamental human need to connect with each other through some kind of abstract expression.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like
culture.
The other day we were talking about it. We bury our dead.
Yeah.
That's
one of the things that defines us as a human species is we bury our dead. No other animal does that except for maybe Homo nidali, or I forget the name, but yeah, we bury our dead, and there's no efficiency in that. There's no financial gain.
Quite the opposite,
right? It's often very expensive and painful. Right, but we do that because of the meaning of the significance connected to the burial process. And there are burial customs the world over that can be radically different from another. But the fact that they exist and that we as human beings want to participate in them, it's absolutely necessary. And I mentioned poetry open mics. No one wants to pay for that stuff, but they need it.
Yeah,
they want it. Right. And so that when I see that fire in someone else, when I see someone else saying, stepping forward, go, wow, this is so important, I want to keep doing this, even if I have to do it for free, right? To overcome this superstructure of a system that we've all been ensconced within, and say, you know what, like the cultural values of our time be damned. I know that being human means connecting with others. I know that this is important. So like I capture that, I see that, and that's what drives me to keep trying, and I think I've shared this with you before. Might be one way to tie things off. It's this haiku that I wrote. In fact, I wrote this haiku when I was studying peace building and conflict transformation in grad school. One of our professors asked us to write a definition for conflict transformation using a haiku. And a haiku, for listeners, is 5
Please
syllables,
share, yeah.
7 syllables, 5 syllables, right? 5, 7, 5. Very short. And so this was my definition for conflict transformation. And that is: one drop ripples, but 1,000 drops birth new life. Together we reign. And it's that togetherness that drives us to transform our situation, to change who we are. What makes bad governments? Bad people. And if enough good people step forward, those governments change. It might change over 100 years or 200 years. The positive peace that I dream of for my country is likely hundreds of years away, right? To overcome the structural inequities alone, and then to move beyond the cultural deprivations that we face as a society, so that we can truly embrace each other in all our wonderful differences. That's a long ways away, but I believe in it. I believe in humanity, in people. That's where my faith really lands. And it's, I'm one drop. I know that I can only do a ripple. I know that I can only make it so far, but 1,000 drops birth new life. Literally, you pour water.
It's why we're planting trees.
Right.
It's that kind of concept.
Yeah, exactly.
For the ages.
SMG's Are We Here Yet podcast is a production of M the Media Project and SM Graves Associates. Learn more at smgravesassociates.com. Now, don't go away. We have a special presentation of The Jazz Room with Joan Watson-Jones. We were able to chat a bit with bassist Dave Holland just before his set at the Newport Jazz Festival. We talked about the musicians with him on the date, and he answered questions from our friend Dave Zox. So please, stay with us and enjoy The Jazz Room with Joan Watson-Jones.
This is Dave Holland, and I'm inviting you to join me in the Jazz Room with host Joan Watson-Jones.
Hello, welcome to the Jazz Room. I'm your host, Joan Watson-Jones. Thanks for stopping by. Come in, relax, enjoy some great jazz. Each week we present the music of independent jazz artists, as well as those we've grown to love through the years. And yes, of course, the legends. Today we welcome bassist Dave Holland. We briefly met before his set at the Newport Jazz Festival. We'll talk about his CD, Another Land, his own record label, and his thoughts about his experiences through the years. This show will feature music from this CD. Right now, you're listening to Mashup, featuring Kevin Eubanks on guitar and Obed Calvaire on drums. thank you so much, Dave Holland, for joining us in the Jazz Room.
I'm happy to be here with you, John.
Thank you so much. The Newport Jazz Festival.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to your set in a little while.
Thank you.
And can you tell me, what is your latest are you playing music from your latest project coming up, or are you doing something
This is
different?
a new project. We just formed a group and did our first tour this summer. Did a tour of Europe for about 3.5 weeks. And we're bringing this to Newport. It's the first performance of this band in the USA. It's a group I really am happy to be playing with. Wonderful musicians. On saxophone is Jaleel Shaw, great alto player. On piano, Chris Davis. She's a really extraordinary composer and pianist. And on drums, Nasheed Waits, who I love playing with. What a great drummer he is, and wonderful positive energy always.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Now, I found it interesting learning about you forming your own company, Dare 2 Records.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this, how you got that started, and how it's evolved since you started it?
Yeah, well, I had many years working with ECM Records. It's a German-based recording company. And in 2004, my manager, Louise, and myself decided to... we had a record that we'd already recorded. It's the second big band record that I did called Overtime. And we decided to put that out as a starting release on the new label. And Louise was able to secure a distribution deal with Universal France, and that's how things started for us.
Okay, interesting. Can you tell me now this new project? What's it? The project you're going to be performing? What is that called?
The band today you're talking about? It's just called Dave Holland New Quartet.
Dave Holland New Quartet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a project you're working on, but you don't have you're not recording this yet.
No, well, we'd like to play the music before we record it, you know.
Makes sense.
So
I get it.
Well, some people like to record first and then tour it, you know. I like to give the music a chance to be developed in the band.
It needs to breathe.
Well, it's worked for me, that kind of way of working, and so we've done our first tour this summer, and we're now talking about when to schedule a recording date.
Okay. Yeah. No, I understand that process very well.
Yeah,
Thank you. Well, I mentioned to you that when we were waiting, that I have a bass player friend. We've been working together for over 20 years.
Okay.
And he's a wonderful player. And I sent him a text.
What's his name?
His name is Dave Zox.
Okay.
And
Give Dave some play there.
yes. Why not?
Yeah.
Right? I love working with Dave. He's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I sent him a text and I said, Dave, I'm going to interview Dave Holland. What would you like, if you had a chance to ask him a question, what would you ask him? He wrote me back, Joan, you're brilliant. And then he sent me this, and I'm going to quote Dave, okay? And I asked him, he said, of all the incredible musicians you've worked with through the years, Herbie Hancock, Miles, Pat Metheny, and Kenny Barron, to famous bluegrass artists, of all these incredible musical artists, are there any that taught you unforgettable lessons about music, art, and life? And what are those lessons?
Okay. Well, I've been very fortunate in my life. You know, I've had a chance to play with some of the masters that have been involved in this music. And, you know, when you get a chance to play with somebody like Miles or Herbie Hancock, you're able to tap into how they approach things and how they carry themselves even, you know, just the whole thing of their personality and everything, you know. And, Miles particularly, he had a wonderful sense of how to bring a band together, choosing musicians that could work together, but also running the band with a very light touch, you know, allowing the creative forces that the musicians bring to the table to have a chance to be explored. And that was a big lesson for me, to see that trust that he gave everybody, that he had trust that they would do something creative with the music. And you know, finding the right people and then just letting them loose, you know, and having some music to focus on. Herbie, I would say one of the things, apart from his amazing musicianship, of course, was the joy that he brought to the bandstand when he played. And I sometimes took myself a little too seriously on the bandstand. You know, I'd have my eyes closed perhaps and, you know, concentrating like that. And Herbie is so joyful when he plays. Not that he's not totally focused, but there's a communication that comes out of like connecting with each other on the bandstand that I found really helped me open up even more. And I was very happy to have that. I mean, I could get very technical about things I learned about how he plays and so on, but I'm thinking more about, you know, non-specific musical issues more. And the chance to be with these great players, you know, you just have a chance to see how they pace a set, how they pace a solo, you know, these kind of things that a mature musician brings to the performances, you know.
Yeah, yeah. All right, thank you. And
welcome.
he had one more question.
Okay.
What would you want the young upcoming musician that you might play with to know and do as a creative artist?
Well, follow the muse, you know. They need, of course, a young musician needs to create a foundation for their playing. But they also need to tune into the things that move them emotionally in the music, and that and the language of music that they're interested in, and follow that. And I advise them not to get too worried about their position in the business and all things like that. I was speaking to somebody just now and telling them that I wrote something on a piece of paper when I was a young musician, and it said, "You take care of it and it'll take care of you." And by that I meant that if you take care of the music, everything will come from that. You know, if you start worrying about your career and, you know, getting ahead and all that kind of stuff, of course you have to have some ambition, but you can get carried away with that. And if you take care of the music, either it'll come from that or it won't come at all, but it'll come from a real thing if it's coming from the music.
All right, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because Dave is a teacher as well as a performer, so I know that's why he asked, but I just had to.
That's okay. I'm happy to answer the question.
Yeah. But that I just wanted to just have everybody have a good feel of who you are. And when I listen to your music now, when I put it together, I understand the music more by talking with you.
Okay.
So
beautiful.
that's.
Here's another cut from Another Land, titled Gentle Warrior. You're in the Jazz Room. I'm your host, Joan Watson Jones. We continue with our interview with bassist Dave Holland at the Newport Jazz Festival.
How do people learn about your music?
Well, you know, it's first of all, the music's something I share with other musicians, you know, and the context of that is important because in different contexts, I approach the music in different ways depending on what's appropriate. From a flamenco project that I've done to a Arabic musician oud music player that I've played with, to more traditional jazz forms, contemporary jazz forms. You know, I love music in general, a big, wide range of music, and I think somewhere in there, hopefully people will find something they like and they'll enjoy it, you know.
Yes.
But it reflects my taste in music, which is very, very broad, and I love the diversity of the music. And as a jazz musician, you know, you have a chance to work in so many different contexts because as improvisers, we're used to adapting to the language that we're involved in, you know. So, and particularly as a bass player too, being an accompanist, you know, in different situations. So I just say, you know, start somewhere and see what you like. That's all.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dave Holland, for joining us in the Jazz Room here at the Newport Jazz Festival.
Thank
and I'm
you very
looking
much.
forward to your show.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. Pleasure talking to you. Have a good time.
Finally, here's the title composition from Dave's CD, Another Land. We've come to the end of another show. Thank you for spending time here with us in the Jazz Room. You may see my photographs of artists at the Newport Jazz Festival and many more on the Jazz Room page of my website, joanwatsonjones.com. Until next time, you've been in the Jazz Room. I'm your host, Joan Watson Jones.
The Jazz Room is distributed by M the Media Project and SM Graves Associates. Learn more at smgravesassociates.com.